before the army's ultimatum for the president and his opponents expires. Also this lunchtime. Good afternoon and welcome to the BBC News at 1. Senior military officers in Egypt are holding a crisis meeting just hours before their deadline to President Morsi and the opposition runs out. They've told him to resolve the country's political crisis by this afternoon or face military intervention. The army has said it is ready to die to defend Egyptians against what it called terrorists and fools. Protesters are continuing to gather in Cairo's Tahrir Square ahead of that 3:30 deadline. Well, Ben Brown is there for us. Ben Brown with the latest there from Cairo. Thank you very much. And there is, of course, more information on the deepening crisis in Egypt on the BBC News website. That's bbc.co.uk/Egypt. Foreigners from outside the EU face being charged to use the NHS in England under plans to tackle so-called health tourism. The government wants people with visas of 6 months or more to pay a health service fee of around £200 a year. The Department of Health estimates the cost of treating people from overseas is £30 million a year, but some doctors are warning immigrants with untreated diseases could pose a public health risk.
These proposals, I think, Sophie.
Bolivia has expressed its anger after their president's jet was forced to land in Austria last night following a tip-off that the fugitive US spy agency contractor Edward Snowden was on board. The plane was taking President Morales home after a summit in Moscow where Mr. Snowden has been staying in an airport transit area. It turned out he was not on board. From Moscow, Steve Rosenberg reports. Nelson Mandela's grandson has been ordered to return the remains of 3 relatives this afternoon to Kunu, where the former South African president grew up. 2 years ago, his grandson exhumed the bodies of 3 of Mandela's children and moved them to Mvezo, where he is the local chief and where his grandfather was born. But a group of Nelson Mandela's relatives said he did it without their consent. The government's plans for a royal charter to regulate the press will not now be introduced until the autumn at the earliest. Plans have been announced for a major overhaul and expansion of the Territorial Army. The service, which will now be known as the Army Reserve, will double in size to 30,000 over the next 5 years. But the move comes as the number of regulars is being reduced, and critics say they are creating an army on the cheap. Our defence correspondent Caroline Wyatt is in Helmand. It's men's quarter-final day at Wimbledon with Andy Murray due on court later this afternoon. He'll play Fernando Verdasco for a place in the semis. Andy Murray is favourite to beat the Spaniard, who has never made it to the quarter-finals at Wimbledon before. But as we know by now, this year's championships has been full of surprises. And Verdasco is the first left-handed player that Murray has had to face this year. Well, let's get the latest from Wimbledon because Catherine Downs is there for us now. Catherine. Well, there was more good news for the economy this morning as a new survey suggested the UK's services sector grew at its fastest rate for more than 2 years in June.
Well, Sophie, quite a few economists are beginning to say that the recovery is gaining a bit of momentum.
As we've seen recently, the threat can come from the Eurozone, and Portugal's having some very difficult times at the moment.
Yes, the Eurozone can always come back, if you like, to bite investors out there.
Thank you very much. Prince Charles has come face-to-face with the Daleks this morning when he visited the Doctor Who set in Cardiff. It was quite an encounter. Our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell was there and his report contains some flash photography. Rugby now, and in a surprise move, Brian O'Driscoll has been dropped from the British and Irish Lions' deciding test match against Australia on Saturday. The Ireland centre had been widely tipped to captain the team. Now the Welsh forward Alan Wynne-Jones will take his place. Critics have described the decision as a huge shock and a terrible mistake. Now, 75 years ago today, a world record, which still stands, was set by a steam engine called Mallard. For just a couple of minutes, the locomotive thundered along at speeds of 126 miles per hour. And to mark the occasion, the engine has been reunited with 5 of its sister locomotives at the National Railway Museum in York, attracting enthusiasts from all over the world. Danny Savage reports.
To say that's too hot.
No, at last, that's what I'll say. Thank you very much, Nick. That's all from us now on BBC One. We join the BBC's news teams where you are. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.